let me go ahead and just read it a bit, see how far we get into this. So again, coming from Curbed, New York Magazine. So this is a bit skewed probably towards the East Coast and what's happening in the New York market, but maybe indicative of national trends. And we're going to try to give our view on it later. So the spring housing market is a miserable game of chicken. After nearly a year of high interest rates, high housing prices, and meager listings inventory, hold on here. Buyers and real estate brokers have been looking forward to the spring, when a flurry of new listings typically come on the market. So far, however, the pickings have remained depressingly slim. I've been telling my buyers that it's spring and there's going to be good inventory coming on, says Lauren Cangiano, an associate broker at Brown Harris Stevens. But it didn't. It just didn't. It's not that there's nothing on the market, clarifies Kimberly J., an associate broker at Compass. It's that there's very little that's good. Most listings are either overpriced or have been sitting for months, brokers say, usually both. A handful of sellers are willing to take offers. Jay recently represented two different clients who bought a 530 Park Avenue a condo conversion on the Upper East Side. The deals happened, she says, because the owners were open to negotiation, going down to $1.63 million, for example, on a unit asking $1.84 million. But most sellers are standing firm, convinced that they'll eventually find a buyer willing to pay last year's high prices. I have a seller who made an offer on something, and the broker said, "Oh, we've had higher offers than that, and we turned them down. We're not even going to consider it. There's no sense of urgency," says Jay. Of course, the sense of malaise may, in part, be a come down from the frantic bidding wars of the last few years, which were fueled by historically low interest rates. The number of contracts signed in Manhattan in March, just under 1,200, is historically on par with pre-pandemic years, according to real estate data firm Urban Digs. And the number of contracts signed and listing inventory, though down year over year, have been up several months in a row, according to Douglas Elliman's March market report. But the market, everyone agrees, is weird right now. Interest rates are high, which would usually force down prices, but the inventory is so low that it hasn't happened. Brokers say they've found that a listing either sells immediately, usually because it's well priced, or not at all. If you don't price right, you're fucked, says one. There are also still a fair amount of bidding wars, according to Jonathan Miller, founder of appraisal firm Miller Samuel. About half as many as before the interest rate shifted, down from around 50 to 25% in Westchester and Fairfield counties and 9 to 5% in Manhattan. But still a substantial amount given that interest rates are double, says Miller. Lisa Chachette, associate broker at Coldwell Banker Warburg, recently had a buyer looking for a two-bed, two-bath apartment on the Upper East Side. They went to see 12 listings, which ranged in price from $2.1 million to $2.9 million. Many were overpriced and had been sitting, but they made an offer on a $2.19 million apartment that had been listed for less than a month and are now in contract. We grabbed it, Chachette says. I thought it was a very fair price. She says that she looks at the last comp in the building line and makes every effort not to go above it. If you bought in 2014, 15, or 16 and did no work, don't expect to put an apartment on the market for more than you paid. Brokers are going to ask you where you came up with that price. Almost everyone is frustrated right now, including owners, says Sidney Bloomstein, associate broker at Corcoran. They feel like inventory is low. They list, they don't get good traffic, and then they sit on the market for a while. Getting clients to price right is a challenge, though. The slow market has left some brokers so desperate for listings that they're calling any seller with an expired listing and telling them they can get them a buyer at the last asking price. The broker feeding frenzy gives sellers false hope and subsequently stymies actual sales. One of Bloomstein's listings in the West Village was on the market for a year and a half with another broker asking $12 million, later dropped to $9 million. When she took it over, she convinced the seller to go down to $7.5 million. But in the 2 weeks the apartment was off the market before it relisted, the seller got calls from 30 brokers. I said, Give them my number if they have a buyer. No one had a buyer. No one wanted to see it, says Bloomstein. But the seller, convinced he'd be leaving money on the table at 7.5, insisted on asking 7.99. The price has since dropped to 7.85, and they have yet to find a buyer. Buyers still fight over certain types of listings. Like a 3-bedroom co-op Bloomstein listed in Prospect Park South recently. It went for $30,000 more than the asking price. We had 70 groups at our open house and several offers, she said. There are just so few renovated resale co-ops under $1 million. 3 bedrooms in Tribeca are similarly priced, according to Colin Bond and Boris Fabricant, brokers who head up a team at Compass and recently listed one. It got multiple offers and went into contract after 2 weeks on the market. For the most part, however, buyers aren't feeling any sense of urgency either. Something we hear a lot is, we really like the place, but we want to see what else is coming to market, says Fabricant. Even though there's not a ton of inventory, buyers don't feel the pressure. With the rates being where they are, they feel like they can afford to be choosy. All right, there we go.
Right. Gosh, so many there's always references from the past and the future. What happened, comparing rates doubling, the past is the past, man. It doesn't do you any good to dwell on that.
Right.
The future.
Or hope for it.
Yeah. The future, you can try to predict it. Absolutely. You have every opportunity and you can spend your time trying to predict that. Usually if you stick with a prediction, eventually you'll be right. Something that you believe will happen. It always comes down to timing in a specific person's situation. It's a repetitive mantra that we discussed. But so in this case, no sense of urgency. That's the underlying component to this article. That's the game of chicken. Is that whatever? Let's see who concedes first. Right?
Who's going to blink?
Who's going to blink? Right. And does that initial blink trigger a response on the other side? Well, we've even seen a little bit of that, right? It's these little movements in and out of a slightly stronger seller's market, stronger buyer's market. And then there's going to be little hyper local components as well. But I do like what they discussed, which is exactly what we said about our one listing on Benton. And that is that, either the entry level or the lower priced things are moving fast with multiple offers. And people see what they want to see and how that relates to their situation. It doesn't always relate directly to their situation. And the other component that is still moving, what we see in our market very specifically, they're really well designed, well placed, well located.
I was going to say, this is really a great segue all around because, the next thing we're going to talk about, is the Northeast LA market. And, as I reviewed them earlier today, we're going to see exactly this happening, right? Some underpricing, but definitely some good looking, updated, refreshed, flipped homes, some of them that, go quite a bit up in price. You're exactly right.
And in that case, it even flipped, even new. And these are the hyper local elements that we definitely know we see here in Northeast LA. Those who are really engaged in this community. It's not just that it's new and refreshed; it's that it's got the right product, the right choice of materials, the right connection, indoor, outdoor. It's those are the homes that really well thought through. And laid out. They're selling fast. They're getting multiple offers. So the middle is really struggling at this point. And what might draw you into the middle might be a single thing about your space. That is the reality of it.
Right. So would you say, after we went through this article, would you say it's kind of a similar story here? Maybe not the price points for an apartment.
That's the only difference. Right? Is the price points. And the fact that they might have very direct comparables, like if they're saying if something hasn't sold in this building, we don't have that dynamic.
Right.
in our local
Right.
market. But we
Right.
have to try to interpret, 4 blocks away. Is it the
Uh-huh.
same as this? Is it a little
Right.
micro area that doesn't have the same incentives or disincentives? And so we're
Yeah.
having to decipher a little more of that
Yeah.
rather than, having direct comps in a specific building.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, a little side note. So I had a quick meeting with a technology company who I'm on their beta test group, and supposedly they've got great estimates, value estimates. And I sat in with them and I started explaining our market. And for me, at least, I don't know if they felt it as I was speaking. You need a good real estate agent to really decipher what's going on about your house and the market. And as you're pointing out, Darren, all these different layers, not just about the market, but your house in particular, in coming up with the right price. Because it did say here, right? Pricing is key, and you got to be as close as you can.
Right.
Um,
And that can be a pocket to pocket situation, a month to month, a general vibe, watching inventory,
mm,
watching rates. Sometimes it feels right in the moment with the data you have.
right.
Um, Look back a couple weeks later on what's happened when you went to market, and that's when you find out in real estate,
Mm,
um, it might not look as good. And
right.
all you can do is adjust quickly from a seller
Right.
perspective. Because if you never want to, if it's you never want to chase a market down. If you're not getting good energy, you got to get in that spot and getting good
Hmm.
feedback, good activity.
Right.